But you know, a recent proposal from the Department of Homeland Security to change its public charge rule has immigration advocates here in Michigan very concerned. The change would let DHS take into consideration the use of health care, housing, or nutrition programs by legal immigrants as a charge against them when applying for green cards or visas. Now, DHS says it wants to promote self-sufficiency and make sure that legal immigrants are not a, quote, burden on the American taxpayer. But opponents say this penalizes immigrants who are here in this country legally. To understand how and to get some more perspective, I spoke with Rima Miraway, the Advocacy and Community Engagement Manager at Access. So explain to us exactly what public charge is.
So public charge is essentially how the government decides when someone is applying for a visa to come to the United States, or when someone is already in the United States and applying for a green card, they go through essentially a public charge test. It's not really a test, but it's essentially immigration officers will look at a person's age, income. They'll look at their use of public benefits to decide whether that person is going to become a public charge. And essentially what that means is if they have used cash assistance, if they've received cash assistance, or they have used long-term living assistance, government subsidized living assistance, they are considered a public charge and they're not given a visa or a green card.
So why the change now that Department of Homeland Security is proposing?
I can tell you what the change is. Why the change is essentially this is an attack on family-based immigration. We've already seen an attack on undocumented immigrants. I think this is a way to curb family-based immigration. So it's family separation on a different level. It's people who are here, who are bringing their families to join them. Now their family members will have to go through this public charge test again.
And so tell us what benefits that now that they're going to be looked at and that will be held against them essentially if they are using.
They're adding if someone is using Medicaid, if someone is using housing vouchers or prescription drug subsidies, those would all consider them a public charge. However, there's one component that they're adding that is probably the most devastating for immigrants, and that is that for a family of 4, they would need to make at least $31,000 in order to not be considered a public charge. The problem with that is we know a lot of immigrants come here, and while some, not many, but some may need to use the public benefits initially because they don't have a job, because they don't have, they're in the process of getting all of those things. We know that some of them may use that initially, but then after that come off of it and contribute a lot more. In fact, there was a study that showed that people who stayed on public benefits in the long term were people in rural areas, not immigrants who were living in cities, simply because rural areas don't have as many jobs.
We are talking about legal immigrants, people
Absolutely.
who have come to this country legally. What would that do now, should there be a change in this? What would that do to community programs in terms of access and helping some of these people?
Access provides a lot of services to immigrant communities and non-immigrant communities, right? We have our health clinic, and that's the problem. We also provide services for non-immigrant communities. We provide health services, employment and training services, and the problem is if this happens, we already have people, the changes haven't even gone through, and we have people calling and saying, I want to come off of Medicaid, I want to stop using SNAP because this is going to affect my immigration status or my family member's immigration status. So it would for an organization like ours that is already running at full capacity for immigrant and non-immigrant communities, this would put us at a huge disadvantage, and it means that we would have to get more money to be able to do this work. And so this money that the government is proposing to stop putting on immigrants who are coming here would have to come from somewhere else, and it's probably going to be at the disadvantage of local cities, of businesses in the area, of hospitals. Hospitals are very concerned with this rule change because they are going to have to absorb a lot of these costs. So there, it would be detrimental to essentially the communities. This is who it's going to impact. It's not just impacting immigrants, it's impacting our communities as a whole.
Now, this is just a proposed change to the public charge rule. We're in the midst of a 60-day public comment period before any final decisions are made.